Bombshell tonight, D4VD, David Anthony Burke, has somehow managed to become a jail VIP, getting hot meals including turkey, cranberry sauce, dressing, dinner rolls. What? This after we discover his bizarre one-word post following Celeste's murder. That one word? Decay.
One word, for letters, posted publicly within hours of a 14-year-old girl's disappearance. Decay. No caption, no explanation, no second thought about who might screenshot it before it disappeared into the feed.
We've seen a lot of morbid pictures inside the courtroom.
Gruesome court images reveal the body of teen girl Celeste Rivas.
I've thought that other people definitely have known about this and held this secret. He did not ask what happened because he did not want to know.
Excuse me, quick question. Oh, what are you up to? You call me my work clothes, bro. You know, I still got the tie. I'm trying to clean up a little bit. You think Tyler's gonna get all that out? I hope so. What's your name? David. How are you feeling today? It's raining outside. I think I got a cold. I'm kind of sick. What song do you put on when you're in bed and feeling sick? Romantic Homicide. How does that one go? I'm scared. It feels like you don't care. Yeah. Little rainy song. Appreciate you, bro.
That from our friend Nicholas Nuvon at TikTok. Let's just see that one more time. Is that actually D4VD, David Anthony Burke, in the grocery wearing a seemingly bloody shirt talking about romantic homicide? Because I want to see that one more time.
Excuse me, quick question. Oh, what are you up to? You call me my work clothes, bro. You know, I still got the tie. I'm trying to clean up a little bit. You think Tyler's gonna get all that out? I hope so. What's your name? David. How are you feeling today? It's raining outside. I think I got a cold. I'm kind of sick. What song do you put on when you're in bed and feeling sick? Romantic Homicide. How does that one go? I'm scared. It feels like you don't care. Yeah. Little rainy song. Appreciate you, bro.
To all you David Anthony Burke fans, I really think even I could do a better job. And that's from Nicholas Nuvon on TikTok. And while D4VD sets up a video to be released of him singing in a bloody shirt in the grocery aisle, here's the reality of what happened to Celeste.
That single word is now sitting in a case file, entered as a data point in one of the strangest prosecutions in recent memory. Picture a magician pulling back the curtain at the exact wrong moment. That's what this post did. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. Investigators now say it might mean everything. This is the case of Celeste Rivas and the alleged involvement of musician David Anthony Burke, known to millions as D4VD. Before we go deeper into what the records actually show, make sure you're subscribed to the Crime Infinity, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Here's what's documented. Celeste Rivas was 14 years old. According to reporting on the case, she and Burke, then in his 20s and newly famous from a viral song, had been in an on-and-off relationship for roughly 2 years. In September 2025, her body was found inside a vehicle registered to Burke, concealed in a way investigators say was designed to delay discovery.
Dead. She was disarticulated. Why? You know what? I'm not talking to you. To Steve Fisher joining us, private investigator, missing persons specialist in search and rescue, owner of Search Investigations at searchinvestigations.org. Fisher, not the police, Fisher goes out and takes the pat the street and turn the corner, and gets video, amasses video, ring cam, door cam, you name it, seeing D4VD, David Anthony Burke's car, moved from space to space. He even saw who was driving, wouldn't tell anybody. In that car, in that Tesla, is Celeste Rivas' disarticulated body. He found all that. He has been inside D4VD's mansion, the alleged murder scene. You heard Annie Elise, star of Seriously podcast, describing the grand piano, the 5 bedrooms, the hot tub, the pool. What did it look like when you went in, Steve Fisher?
Burke was arrested and charged. He has not been convicted. He is legally presumed innocent, and every detail that follows should be read through that lens. This is what investigators and prosecutors allege, documented in filings, not a finding of fact. But somewhere in the gap between what a person posts online and what a body reveals under forensic light, there's a story worth asking about directly. What does it take for someone to sing about heartbreak in public while, according to authorities, the physical evidence tells an entirely different story in private? According to court filings and preliminary hearing testimony, forensic analysts recovered blood evidence from multiple locations connected to Burke, inside his Tesla, including the trunk area, on a rowing machine, on a vehicle charger, and on a tarp recovered from the property. DNA analysts reportedly testified that in several of these samples, the statistical probability the blood belonged to anyone other than Celeste Rivas exceeded 1 in a septillion.
First item was a blood stain that was found in the Tesla. It did confirm that it was Celeste's DNA, and she said the statistic is 1 septillion times, most likely, Celeste's. That is a 1 followed by 24 zeros. Remember, there's like 9 billion people in the whole world. So the fact that this number, this stat is so precise shows that this is Celeste's DNA that was found in the Tesla. Another stain that was collected in the lower trunk was also consistent with Celeste's DNA. Those are the 2 swabs that were taken from the Tesla that confirmed that her DNA was in there. We've got a red stain that was recovered from the rowing machine. That one also showed that it was Celeste's DNA with a septillion chance. That's a crazy number. We also had a blood stain on the Tesla charger in the garage. Also the same thing. It was a septillion chance that it was Celeste's. The green tarp, same thing, same blood stain and same statistic. Inside the bag, again, I believe this is the same bag that had these hand wipes. Our 8th item is the hand wipes, which did match with Celeste's. It was a partial profile. It looks like it's a 3 trillion chance that it is Celeste's, a 3 followed by 12 zeros. Now, whenever David's team got up and tried to ask Samantha about these, they pretty much wanted her to confirm that DNA can be transferred.
That's a 1 followed by 24 zeros. There are roughly 8 billion people alive on this planet right now. A number like that isn't circumstantial. It's about as close to certainty as forensic science gets. And this is where the case's moral center holds steady. A young girl is dead, and no statistic, however staggering, is more important than that fact. The defense, according to public reporting from the hearing, has argued that DNA transfer can occur through secondary contact, shared spaces, shared surfaces, shared objects. That's a legitimate forensic principle, and courts take it seriously. But legal analysts who followed the hearing note the real challenge isn't disputing that transfer exists in theory. It's explaining why blood turns up in the trunk, on cleaning materials, and on the exact surfaces prosecutors say were used to move and conceal a body. Presence is one argument. Placement is another. That distinction may end up deciding this case.
The other way.
That is Sloan on TikTok. Before I go to the rest of our all-star panel, straight out to Joseph Scott Morgan, death investigator, over 10,000 death scenes, deaths of all nature, suicide, natural causes, unexplained, and, of course, homicide. I appreciate what Sloan was just saying. Everything he said was accurate. Did a D4VD actually think that he could grab a wet wipe and clean it all up? Did you hear where the blood is? On the rowing machine, on that blow-up kiddie pool he had to put her body in? According to reports, this is all just alleged, so the blood wouldn't get on his floor, but on his floor, in his Tesla, in the front of his Tesla, in the back of his Tesla, in the front trunk of his Tesla. Oh, I forgot, throwing about 11 air fresheners on her dead, disarticulated body. Really? What happened to Celeste, Joe Scott?
Nancy, you and I have known one another for a long, long time. In that period of time, maybe we've ridden in a car together. I know that we have. Have I ever asked you to get into the trunk of the car?
We did at Jacksonville State University, for Pete's sake.
We did. And I'm not going to ask, why? Why exactly would her DNA be inside of that trunk? Well, we have an answer to that. That's because it appears as though that's where her remains were deposited. Deposited I remind everyone, and we need to keep coming back to this because this is about Celeste, deposited after he had rendered her down with sharp instruments and put her into multiple conveyances. And one of these conveyances, this bag that they're talking about, has got her DNA on it, right? And then you go back to this wipe, all right? Yeah, I think that it's a fool's errand to think that you can get rid of DNA if you've got some kind of sanitary wipe that's out there you're going to try to, clean your hands with, this sort of thing, and you're not going to transfer your DNA to that. And yeah, I mean, counsel's making a point. They say, well, it can be transferred any number of ways. Yeah, but it's transferred in the sense that this is adjunct to a body that has literally been rendered down and is being stored in the vehicle in which is owned by the accused.
Joe Scott.
Yeah.
Really? Did
Yeah.
you hear the stats on that DNA?
Yeah, the numbers are absolutely mind blowing. This drives defense attorneys crazy at this point in time because these numbers are so astronomical. You heard this young man just talking about a second ago, septillion. Are you kidding me? How do you defeat that? And the only way they can really attack something like this, Nancy, is procedurally. How was it collected?
Then there's the online behavior, the detail that turned a criminal case into a public spectacle. According to reporting, in the days following Celeste's disappearance, Burke continued posting content, including footage of himself in public spaces, seemingly unaffected. And then came the post-decay. Forensic psychologists who've commented publicly on cases like this describe a documented phenomenon where language, spoken or typed, occasionally surfaces in ways that draw retrospective attention, though they're careful to add that a single word, on its own, proves nothing in a courtroom. Context is what turns a word into evidence, and only a jury gets to decide if that context exists here. Reports have also surfaced regarding messages allegedly sent by Burke referencing a fictional alter ego persona, in which violent imagery involving a young girl was described. According to interviews with individuals who say they received this content, it was disturbing enough to become part of the broader public record surrounding the case. The legal analysts note a judge will ultimately decide what's admissible. Defense attorneys have publicly argued this amounts to character assassination, dark, provocative art from a musician in an extreme genre, not evidence of intent.
The one word, very bizarre post right after Celeste's murder, decay. I don't think I need a shrink to tell me what that means, but to Dr. Cheryl Arrett joining us out of Beverly Hills, what do you make of it?
Well, Nancy, many artists channel their unacceptable impulses into their art, but there are some who act them out. And this man was charged with acting out the things that he would say. And the thing that strikes me about David Burke is that he keeps telling on himself with these texts, with the title of his song, with the interviews and the jokes and the materials of threatening or joking about cutting off this girl's arms, or the other word for disarticulated, that he said that his phone was in China being taken apart. Well, a phone doesn't have limbs. That in shrink world would be considered something called a Freudian slip, where the word just kind of slips out that you're actually meaning. And I think if we look, there is a cascade of incidents where he keeps kind of telling on himself in all of these different ways and leaving all of these clues, and it's really striking.
Another issue we've discovered, Dave Mack, isn't it true that, and this is according to an interview with the Rolling Stone, and Steve Fisher has talked to the young girl himself, that he sends anime, let's see it, where a young girl's arms are severed?
Nancy, as I mentioned a minute ago, this is a guy who texts and sends out everything like it doesn't matter to him. He's not thinking, but he sends a joke to, well, what he says or is of himself and his alter ego anime character, Itami. Okay. And in this fictional alter ego, Itami, Burke jokes about cutting off the arms of this girl, who, by the way, in the Rolling Stone interview, she's going by the name Jane to protect her own privacy, but he actually is outing himself through his alter ego, Itami, saying he wants to cut her arms off. Again, what happened with Celeste, Nancy?
To Eric Faddis, you'll have a field day trying to keep that evidence out, and you just may be able to do it, claiming it's irrelevant and prejudicial.
Yeah, very well might be. Look, we have had instances in the past of extreme artists, right? You think about Cannibal Corpse, Insane Clown Posse, Marilyn Manson. These folks certainly push the envelope. They're provocative, but being that way in the artistic realm is not a crime. And furthermore, it is probably not relevant evidence to this case. The fact that he, sent some video or something, some anime.
That argument may work. It may not. But here's the refrain worth repeating. A young girl is dead, and everything else, the art, the persona, the fame, is secondary to that fact. Now to the detail that's generated as much public outrage as the forensic evidence itself. How Burke has reportedly been housed since his arrest. According to jail records and coverage of his custody status, Burke has been kept separate from the general population, a decision officials have defended as a safety measure.
Hello Kitty outfits. We have D4VD, David Anthony Burke, is a VIP behind bars, a very important person. Okay, hold on. He's got room service. He doesn't have to eat with general population. They bring him his meals. And we've learned that the LA Food Services has implemented a new hot meal program at Men's Central, carefully designed to meet recommended daily standards for calories, protein, carbohydrates, nutrients, with a team of dietitians and advisors. Called the, quote, most significant improvement in inmate feeding in decades across the country. Wow. Also, here's the menu. Chicken Royale, pasta, cooked spinach, salad. One day, roasted turkey, candied yams, sweet potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce, salad dressing, dinner roll, pumpkin muffin, my rear end. Why is he getting a pumpkin muffin and chocolate milk? This guy is getting totally babied and coddled. He gets a private escort to the shower, so there's no pick up the soap, please, in the shower. None of that's going on. He's kept away from GP because he might be bullied, while Celeste is dead. Okay, help me out, Dave Mack. Why is he a VIP behind bars?
This is a documented, standard practice for inmates facing charges involving minors, who are frequently isolated for their own protection, not a privilege manufactured for this specific case.
It comes down to the partial fame that he was achieving, Nancy, as well as that, the accusations against D4VD are beyond the pale, and there are certain aspects of criminal behavior in jail where somebody who targeted or groomed young people, and we're talking 11 years old here, they are looked on worse than regular inmates. So he is being kept away from general population as much to protect himself, from other inmates, as well as the notoriety. Think about it. Somebody taking him out because he is a so-called celebrity might bring something. But you're right when you described him being escorted wherever he goes. He does have a cell to himself. He doesn't have to communicate with anybody. He just gets to be by himself all day long. I think what you're trying to say,
Dave Mack, is he's not having to have an over-amorous roommate. He's
also reportedly had access to a newly implemented nutrition program at the facility, one designed for the broader inmate population and rolled out around the same time as his incarceration, according to officials, not created for him individually. Still, the optics, understandably, have struck many observers as difficult to reconcile with the severity of the charges.
Boo-hoo, Eric Faddis, defense attorney. He's gone from his mansion in Hollywood Hills to the men's CI, but he's still getting VIP treatment. Faddis is the founder of the law offices of Eric Faddis, former felony prosecutor, current criminal defense and civil attorney at ericfaddislaw.com. Why is he getting kid glove treatment?
Nancy, heaven forbid they're feeding this man while he's in custody. Oh my gosh, he's getting spinach and potatoes. God forbid. I think what we're talking about here is a person who is presumed innocent under the Constitution, for whom there are significant safety concerns. Right or wrong, he has this stigma that is going to attach to him just based on the nature of the charges. So the fact that the facility is protecting him and feeding him doesn't seem so beyond the pale to me.
The Constitution, as written by our founding fathers, as interpreted over the years in court after court after court, does provide the Sixth Amendment rights. You're right. But do you even know what chicken royale is? Don't try to Google it. Do you know?
That might have been before my time, Nancy. I'm not super familiar with that dish.
Well, they're serving it right now to D4VD. So I don't know what you're talking about before your time. Maybe you're not a chef, but let me enlighten you. Classic chicken royale is a rich, comforting, baked dish, stuffed chicken breasts, a popular 4-ingredient creamy casserole version, stuffed with creamy mushroom sauce, breadcrumbs, melted butter, chopped onion, parsley, spices, paprika. I don't believe the Constitution said anything about him having chicken royale behind bars, much less turkey and dressing, candied yams, and cranberry sauce. She's dead.
Then there's a detail that stunned observers watching this case from the outside. Reports that Celeste's parents had signed a notarized document permitting her to travel internationally with Burke while she was still a minor.
That from KABC and TMZ. Speaking of the family, Dave Mack, what can you tell me about the recent discovery that little Celeste's family signed a waiver allegedly for her to travel out of the country to London with David Anthony Burke? Why don't they just hand her over on a silver platter?
Nancy, this has been a really shocking time when we find out that, we question, how is it possible for Celeste Rivas at less than 14 years old? How is it possible for her to travel overseas to London? How is it possible for her to get on a plane? Well, apparently, Celeste Rivas' parents signed legal documentation allowing her to travel with David Anthony Burke. This is something that we've wondered. How did it happen? Remember when her passport was found out there in the Santa Barbara woods? And here we go. She actually got approval from her parents. So they knew exactly what was going on and when it was going on, Nancy.
Straight out to Dr. Cheryl Arrett, joining us out of this jurisdiction, California, licensed clinical forensic psychologist specializing in trauma recovery, PTSD, EMDR. She's at askdrcheryl.com. Dr. Cheryl, thank you for being with us tonight. It just wasn't consent. It was a notarized form that they signed in front of a notary, with the seal, to allow their daughter, unchaperoned, to go to London.
Family law experts and forensic psychologists who've spoken publicly about the case are careful to note that this doesn't implicate the parents in the crime itself, but it raises painful, unresolved questions about how visible this relationship was, how long it had been allowed to continue, and how a 14-year-old ended up with legal permission to travel across the globe with an adult man nearly a decade older than her.
Denial that they had anything to do with it. Denial. To Joseph Scott Morgan, professor forensic, death investigator. Denial. I am not blaming the parents. I am saying that they knew about this relationship. D4VD, David Anthony Burke, grew up homeschooled in a highly religious family home where all they could hear was classical music and evangelical music. Then he suddenly gets fame and he moves unchaperoned to Hollywood, living with a bunch of other teens his age. What did they think was going to happen? So they had nothing to do with her murder, but they see all that money, all that fame. It's like, you go on, Celeste. You just go on with David Anthony Burke. Go right ahead. And as a matter of fact, here's a signed and notarized document allowing you to travel internationally.
According to phone records cited by prosecutors, the relationship's final chapter played out almost entirely in text messages. Reports indicate Celeste expressed growing frustration in the weeks before her death. Messages describing feeling discarded, feeling reduced to something transactional, and at least one referencing regret over a past pregnancy termination. Prosecutors say that weeks before her death, she threatened to go public and damage his career. On the day she died, according to reports, her final message asked him to open the door if he was home. Then, according to the record, her phone activity stopped entirely.
Prosecutors give a moment-by-moment account of Celeste Rivas last night. It was a stream of text messages with D4VD before her phone goes forever silent when she gets to his home. Now, in these texts, the last one, her final text is, "Girly Pop, I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home." Girly Pop, I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home. Straight out to Annie Elise joining us, star of Seriously. Annie Elise, her text before she was ordered up like a pepperoni pizza that night by D4VD. Her texts were increasingly frustrated and upset. Why?
She was frustrated with him because she didn't feel that he was committed to her, that he was seeing other women, and that she was being discarded. And not only in the text messages in the 24 hours leading up to her murder, but 5 weeks before that, she sends him a text message saying, "I feel like all we do is have sex. I want more for my life than that." A few months prior to that, she expressed regret about the pregnancy termination. And so you see this pattern building with her where she's starting to realize this guy doesn't care about me the way that I thought he did. He's making me compromise a lot of my values. And then finally, 24 hours before she's murdered, she sends him a text message threatening to end his career, saying, "I will damage anything. I will ruin you. I will end your career." And then the day of the murder, she texts him, "I'll give you one more chance." And then, as we know, according to the prosecutors, he ordered her up with the Uber, delivered her to his house, and she died less than 30 minutes later.
The response to open the gate from Burke is, "I got you. Gate open, door unlocked." And in under an hour.
This is the moment worth sitting with. Because no matter how many technical layers this case accumulates, the DNA statistics, the digital forensics, the custody debates, one fact keeps returning to the center of the story. A young girl is dead, and the person she trusted most is the one now explaining the evidence found in his own car. As of now, Burke remains in custody awaiting trial. Prosecutors have not announced whether they'll pursue the death penalty, a decision reportedly contingent in part on submissions from the defense.
Burke now is eligible for death penalty. The death penalty considerations are now being weighed. Part of that consideration will be any submission that the defense wants to submit to the district attorney's office. It is something that we will consider on whether or not we will seek the death penalty. At this point, the death penalty determination has not been made.
It seems that the defense attorneys are stopping at nothing in an attempt to discredit the prosecution's evidence, and The family was horrified that the defense attorneys brought up evidence to put the blame on a 14-year-old child.
The evidentiary record, the DNA statistics, the phone records, the online activity, the parental travel waiver will all be tested, challenged, and ultimately weighed by a jury that hasn't yet been seated. Nothing here is final. Burke has pleaded not guilty and remains, under the law, an innocent man until a jury says otherwise. But underneath every filing, every statistic, every online post, there's a 14-year-old girl who sent a message asking someone to open a door. If you want to examine the primary record for yourself, rather than rely on any summary, including this one, the preliminary hearing transcripts and case filings are part of the Los Angeles County Court's public record and searchable through the county's official case index. Go read them. So we'll leave you with the question this case keeps circling back to, one no forensic report has answered yet. How does a relationship like this stay hidden in plain sight for as long as it apparently did? Tell us what you think in the comments. If you want more cases broken down through documented evidence, not speculation, like this video, share it, subscribe to the Crime Infinity, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.